I think we're on now.
All right, Mary Beth, I think we're ready.
Okay. We're ready to start. Thanks, everybody. I think there's two things that when we all go to conferences that we can be assured of these days, that we'll talk about AI and we'll talk about sustainability. So we started the day yesterday morning talking about AI, and we're going to wrap up today talking about what's going on in sustainability world with our partners, and we'll look a little bit with some of our experts at both the things that we're doing or need to do as vendors and what the partners are doing themselves. So before we get started, let me introduce the panel. First, we have Crystal Ferreira. Crystal is the channel chief and global head of channels at Logitech, where she plays a pivotal role in establishing the company's B2B channel strategy and managing partnerships. Her interim role as head of global B2B sales gives her the opportunity to shape Logitech's commercial strategies on a global scale. She has almost 3 decades of experience in the IT channel, working with global technology vendors. She brings a wealth of industry knowledge and emphasizes the importance of placing partners at the core of the go-to-market strategies and enabling partners to achieve accelerated growth. Next, we have Meg Brennan. Meg is the Global Partner Strategy and Amplify Commercial Lead at HP Inc. Meg is an inclusive and motivated channel executive with over 20 years experience leading partner strategy. Meg transforms partner organizations from transactional resale focus to services-based recurring revenue drivers by re-engineering strategy, program, roles, operations, and investments. And last, we have Ross Brown. Ross is a former channel chief at Oracle, VMware, Microsoft, and Citrix, an innovative executive who creates original and game-changing approaches to partnering. So thank you all for joining. Looking forward to our conversation today. You know, I think that in the last 24 months in particular, things are really starting to heat up as far as like government regulations and things that we actually need to look more closely at with our partners. And so, Meg, I'm going to start with you. What do you what are you seeing differently as we've seen kind of the government regulation piece of things ratchet up? What are you seeing from partners as far as their interest level and where the priority and importance of sustainability plays with them?
So I would say it's definitely, and I think everyone would agree, kind of a hotter topic in EMEA, where the regulations are driving it. But I want to say even more than regulations, worldwide, customers are starting to drive this change. And I think about my kids who, like my son won't buy new clothes. He buys everything used. It's part of his belief system, and he complains about Taylor Swift's carbon emissions from it.
Mine too.
The younger generations, right, are starting to influence, I think, those of us who've been around longer to drive those decisions around buying products that are more sustainable, buying things like they've driven this whole, design for sustainability. So you have to design products that are easy to repair, easy to refurbish, and vendors are having to take a look at that. So on top of the regulations, we're getting that pressure. And from customers, met with a partner from the Nordics who said, they have customers who are like 40% of what we buy has to be refurbished. Can you imagine? That's so different than it was just a few years ago. So things are changing rapidly.
How about you, Crystal? What are you seeing?
This is definitely the same thing. A lot of drive from the customers who are saying, help me to solve for the requirements that my board is providing to me. Help me to be better community member. Make sure that I'm hitting my goals and targets, along with helping me to just enable or educate my team on what this means to what is the circular economy? What does that mean, and how do I be a part of it? How do I utilize Second Life products when my users are mandating the best? and then just really, how do I keep track of all of that? How do I utilize the tools, because they're getting so much information, almost information overload, and they're not quite sure how to utilize that to hit the targets that they're expected to hit.
Yeah, I think that, we're definitely seeing higher and higher interest around that. Ross, I'd be interested from your perspective. What do you think that partners, kind of in general, are expecting from vendors? What do they expect us to do?
So I have a different perspective because I was coming from a cloud
Right.
service, whereas, Megan, we're dealing with consumer packaged goods, which have a very different waste stream process and how you deal with manufacturing them in a way that's sustainable. In a lot of cases, the decision to move to a SaaS platform, in the case of our applications, or the decision to move to the cloud, is the decision to hold someone else accountable for sustainability. And it's really interesting watching customers. Metaphorically, it's the equivalent of watching people get out of like a 10-cylinder Hummer and get into an electric vehicle and then complain about the manufacturing process of the electric vehicle might not have been perfect, right? So like the work we do in public cloud is really about how do we provide visibility through to customers for their ESG goals of how we're taking their workloads and delivering them at a magnitude lower environmental cost than them doing themselves. And that drives a lot of things like, we have a large installed base of Exadata. That's a hardware platform running our database. How do we end of life those hardware platforms, take them back, recycle them, and deal with the disposition of those assets as we move them to a cloud service that is inherently a magnitude more efficient in power and energy usage and stuff like that, cooling cost and all that stuff. So there's a life cycle that we have to own our legacy in order to help customers move forward, but their demands on partners, and to answer your question, shifts to the partner goes from how do I tell an ESG story to how do I get reporting out of you so I can actually comply with what my customer needs. And the shift is jarring of watching these guys go from dirty smokestacks to immediate, like, we want everything clean right away, right?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. Actually, first of all, it's very interesting that some of our partners and customers would take that perspective and like, hey, great idea. But it's also been interesting to see how fast that shift has started to take place. And so from that perspective, Crystal, like how ready do you think your company is to be able to provide that to partners? And are you guys doing anything yet there to do that for them?
I think it's definitely a journey. I think we're at the beginning of the journey. We've focused mostly internally on how do we, design for sustainability? How do we build our own impact report and hit our own milestones? And now we're just starting to share that information out. So we don't have a sustainability program today, but we're working on building that. And what I envision that program to include is enabling the partners on what our vision is, but also how to build their own impact report. A lot of them aren't doing that today, what the different regulator requirements are, how do they train their sellers to sell a value proposition? How do you sell, instead of selling the new widget, the new product, how do you sell a better or a lifelong product? So really being able to provide them with the tools to help them to get to that next level, including just answers to RFPs questions that they never had before, right? They're struggling with that, and we're struggling with making sure that they get that in a timely manner. So I would just say that we're on the journey together, but I think it's a good journey for us to be doing. And we just have to keep making sure that we're consistent in providing an education and an enablement and awareness of how they can leverage this to better their engagement with their customer as well, because they now can add additional service offerings that maybe they didn't do before. Maybe they can, manage assets and help with that recycle and that second life. And maybe that wasn't something that they had done in the past.
Yeah, I think there's definitely the need for them to grow the understanding and that skill around how to have that conversation and how to position things with customers, for sure. I was wondering, what do you think that as vendors, we should expect from partners? And let me give a little context to the question. So we decided a few years ago at HP that by 2030, we wanted to be the most just and equitable and sustainable, technology company in the world. And we've set down that path. And, I started thinking about it, and it's like, we can't deal with partners that don't care about sustainability if we want this to be what our company's moniker is, basically. And so we started thinking about, like, what is it that we're going to expect partners to demonstrate to us to be able to show us that they really are committed themselves as a company. This is not what they sell, how they sell our products, yours, anything. It's about, where are they at as a company? So again, Ross, let me come back to you. What do you think that we should expect from partners?
So I'm going to inverse your question, Mary Beth, because the very nature of the relationship with the cloud vendor is they shift that expectation on us. And what they want is reporting and the ability to comply with the ESG requirements of their customers. So they go from being I'll just say it this way, a responsible party to a consuming party. And as a consumer, they have power over us to say, here's what we need, like especially the large GSIs. And especially the AI projects that are going and that consume so much power, they have their own requirements and own specifications of like how we do it. Now, I will point out that one of the advantages/disadvantages of moving from a distributed computing model where customers own assets to a distributed computing model where the company provides it as a service allows us to own the entire life cycle. So we build in, and one of the nice things about having that structure is SAFRA can mandate stuff and say, this is what you're going to do, as opposed to a market model, which is we want to create incentives and offers and programs to induce customers. So one of the policies she put in place was we will take back and recycle any equipment customers have, flat out. Some of it, if it's still valuable, we'll give them economic value for and try to reuse racks and things like that. But she mandated us 99.7% of all physical components in OCI data centers are either reused or recycled at end of life. There is no waste stream. We're shooting for now 80% completely renewable power. We'll be at 100 by 2025. So part of what I'm seeing is the partners are pushing us in unique ways. That's moving from be a better consumer to now be a partner in public-private partnerships and building new power sources. How are we going to fuel, a 10x power requirement without going into, backing bonds and doing public offers and things like that to develop sustainable energy solutions? Because it's not just we hope power companies build sustainable energy and we'll be smart consumers of it. It's increasing, and the cloud providers are. We must be a participant in the energy creation business and insist that it comes from clean sources in order to drive the sustainability goals that we have. So partners are pushing us as a consumer, and it's a really interesting dynamic, especially the large GSIs who have whole sustainability practices. They are the voice for their customers now, and they're like, these are our requirements. You either meet them or you disappear in our world, right?
Okay, so I get that part, but let me still ask again, do you expect anything from them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like this is a requirement. Like it's not a, boy, we hope you do sustainable stuff. Either we're running the environment, in which case we know the sustainability, or it's a distributed Exadata system that we're running, in which case we know it, or it's something that's capital assets they bought and are managing for a customer, in which case we absolutely have whole tools and requirements, and we've a whole product offer around measuring the environmental footprint of Oracle products inside of customers, and our partners run that as a benefit. So that's part of the whole, how do you create visibility to what you don't naturally see as a provider? You've got to create all the tooling that you use internally and make it available to your partners and make go do it, right? But I mean, it's kind of like, I'll just say it again. If you have a choice between I can demand somebody else do this for me, or I have to actually change and do this, you'll default to, I'm going to insist somebody else do this for me. And that's the demands that are on us.
How about you, Meg? What are you seeing, and what do you think that, your partners expect from HP?
I think that they expect us and the other large vendors to lead the way. I think government regulation takes time to catch up. and we have to lead the way to make the world a better place. I just honestly, from just a pure, like, I know business is about making money, but they look to us to be, a guiding light, and they look to each one of these companies and many of the companies of the attendees on these calls to be that guiding light. So there are things that, we can require of partners, which, we are doing some things, right? We just introduced that to, receive the top designation in our program. You have to have some commitment with us to sustainability. You have to have done certification and evaluated your own sustainability, kind of initiatives. And so, and we're going to be taking more steps in that direction. So not just what the customer demands, but being the guiding light and helping our partners through, carrot and stick, come along with us.
I want to add on this about what are we doing to do this, because I think one of the important recognitions here is customers are smart about what you're doing. And so there's a market force at work here. And I'll just say it as best I can. NVIDIA is a massive driver on power consumption right now across every provider out there. It's like the biggest thing. So there's physical limits on power. And so this is where economics get aligned. And I've seen something super interesting happen, which is the cloud providers themselves cannot get access to more power. It's now limited by the physical power generation capability inside of each region. So you either do more with the power you have and build efficiency into your cloud to monetize at a higher rate, or you don't, and you end up failing. And so to free up power to drive all these H100s and A100s that are out there, we're encouraging customers to move to ARM platforms. And so this is driving technical shifts, not just be cleaner, but also move your stuff to more efficient platforms for us to free up power to do the AI work you want to do. Because I can, just by reference, we can fit 230,000 ARM cores in 0.5 megawatt of power. That's 20,000 Intel cores. So how much compute can I get out of 0.5 megawatt depends on the platform you choose. And if you're coming and saying, I super need it, urgently need these H100s, then the conversation is going to be, can we make your consumption more efficient to free up power within your tenancy to be able to fund this? Because it's a zero sum, can you get efficiency out of the system to fund more? That's forcing sustainability into the design of data centers more than any regulation would.
So, Crystal, all of this conversation leads to our channel account managers and their skill sets. And what do you think the things are that they need to learn or know to really be able to go have these conversations with partners and help the partners understand everything they need to actually go talk to customers about it?
That's an interesting question, because we just put together this extensive enablement track for our channel account managers and our direct engagement team, because it's something that's different. They're not accustomed to talking about climate change or what our ESG requirements are or our impact. Even the new term of, carbon is a new calorie. How do you track that? What are the numbers? There's so many nuances to the discussion. To be able to educate them on what are the important facts to make sure that it are integrated into their pitch. So we've just built new pitch decks that incorporate our sustainability messaging, as well as provided them additional enablement to just give to the partners. The partners can leverage for their sellers as well. But I think it's, again, a journey. It's just they're just starting and learning on how this has to be integrated into the conversation at all levels of the partner, not just the seller, but even at the C-suite, depending on which type of partner it is.
Yeah, Ross, you're coming from a little bit different perspective. What are you saying that your account managers need to know, and how are you getting that education to them?
So a great qualifying question when we talk to new partners, because Oracle's very much in the go engage cloud partners and get them to work with us. One of the first qualifying questions is, who on your team leads sustainability engineering? Now, this is a qualifying question in the sense of they either have somebody who is in the sustainability engineering practice and it's their job to think about this, or they look at you with blank face and go, well, we kind of think about that as part of our normal day-to-day, which means nobody's job is to think about sustainability. So that's a kind of thing you can immediately see, like, how far into an enterprise are you? If you don't have a sustainability engineering practice, the answer is you're doing tactical cloud work. You're not actually leading platform transitions, because everybody who's leading platform transitions absolutely has a sustainability engineering practice. So that's our way of detecting right away. Are you a real cloud partner, or are you just playing around at the periphery of cloud, or are you somebody companies depend on? It's one of the best qualifying questions we have for, figuring out if somebody's all, hat and no cattle, or whether they actually can do the work. So that's a real job. Like Accenture has hundreds of them, where their job is to look over designs that they're building for customers and figure out, is this actually going to be within the ESG goals the customer has, and within the ESG goals we have as a partner, and then within Oracle's ESG goals, and how do we leverage those? So that it becomes somebody's job is a huge indication that the partner takes this seriously.
Good. Meg, let's move to a little bit different topic around program benefits. And I know our program right now at HP is completely voluntary. It's up to the partners whether they want to take advantage of, the assets that we make available and everything. And we've said that till 2025, it would be voluntary. And I know that we're at the point now where we're looking at, so what's next? So what are you thinking as far as any way to look at anything related to sustainability and how you might attach benefits to it from a program perspective?
Yeah, so one of the really great things at HP is that we do have a channel sustainability team that manages the program, and our program manager is passionate. So that is a fantastic asset. And, we've brainstormed a lot of different ideas. So we haven't landed on the specific ideas, but some of the things that we've brainstormed is, you don't get the top level benefits unless you are on the sustainability journey with us. At least now have become eligible within our program. We've talked about that. Using MDF to fund sustainability efforts. How can we, and this is a marketing effort, right? And it's going to gain customers. So, how can we really position, our funds to drive the right things, which guess what? Right thing for the world, right thing for the business and growing the business. Looking at how we can maybe allocate either more funding there or segment a specific set of funding to go there. Other things that we've talked about is, we have partners who submit sustainability deals, and that's part of our program, as they have to record when they have sustainability deals. Well, we're looking at adding that qualifier onto our deal reg, so that sustainability deal reg could get a higher discount, right? So you get more if you're showing that it's a sustainability deal, and then maybe potentially also back-end rebate.
I think that one of the things we struggle with around that is, how do you define a sustainability deal? In some cases, it's pretty easy, to know and understand. In other ways, it really isn't, but that they bought specific products because of how they were designed for sustainability or things like that. So I think that one of the things we struggle with is really, how do we actually look at what the definition of a sustainability deal is? Yeah. Along those lines, Crystal, what do you guys like? How does success with your channel partners around sustainability, what does that look like? And are there KPIs, metrics? Like, what are you measuring to know we're doing the right things or we're off track?
Well, from a channel perspective, we're not measuring yet. We're just beginning to put together our framework for our program. But some of the things that we will look at is, are the partners progressing in their own initiatives? Have they defined what their initiative is? Have they committed to being a part of the circular economy? Are they been at least hitting on their own goals? And then are they committing to us to be transparent to the customer, to make sure that they're representing the most sustainable vendors? and that they can represent our story, that they know what our message is, and that can be translated to the customer. I think as what some of the things that Meg mentioned that she's doing already, being able to track or identify what those opportunities are is really important, because that shows that they are actually asking the right questions and that they're inspiring their sellers to have that conversation, and it's not just about features and benefits. But I think that's a really good conversation that we could have collectively as channel leaders to try and line up on some of those key KPIs to help guide the partners all in the same manner to achieve the best outcome.
Yeah, I think about that a lot, partly because none of us can afford to get in a situation where, and this is pretty hard, hardware centric, Ross, but none of us can afford to say, hey, partner, you need to demonstrate ABC, or you're not going to get our highest level benefits. I think that would be potentially reasonable for any vendor to say that. But we don't want our partners to say, oh, okay, well, this guy over here isn't making me do that, so I'm just going to go sell their product. And like, none of us can afford that. It's not like, so it's almost like we all have to kind of come up with what would that standard be, or how would we look at it, or what is the industry standard that we could point to say that's the standard that we're going to use. But I think that that's really the part that worries me, is like, how are we going to get together and do that? And I've been saying that now for 2.5 years, and it's still not happening as far as I can see or find. I thought I found, some work that was getting done by GTDC a couple months ago, but it's actually different than this topic. So anybody out there who's interested in getting together to talk about that, I'd love to. I think it's something that we need to really, look at as a group.
I do.
Set that up for our next meeting.
Okay.
I will share that one of the things is a little different for us, because I have a software business as well as a cloud business.
Mm-hmm.
ESG reporting is a product for us. It's part of our ERP platform. It's part of NetSuite. It's built into the expectation. So on our application partner side, it's not a partner program benefit or feature. It's an expectation of an offer that they have, that they run that this is part of implementing ERP, is implementing ESG reporting and analysis, putting in place supply chain, putting in place end-of-life asset management strategies, all those things. So like for us, ESG as a business, it's both a mission in our data centers and how we manage stuff, but it's also like an offering. Like it's a business that partners make good money helping customers be compliant and meet their goals and have their reporting and stuff in place. So
absolutely.
I do think for Meg and Crystal, where you've got distributed products, you do have a secondary channel, the end of life channel that's out there with guys like, I can't remember, like Cascade or some of the other ones that do decomponentization and asset disposition and stuff. That there is a business there. It's just not necessarily a business for you guys, but it's one to monitor and figure out how do you incent that as an end of life thing,
Yeah, absolutely. And how do we work with our distributors to help do, that circular economy, the refurbishment? I've heard some creative ideas around vouchers so that, nothing goes in the dumpster, right? Anything a partner, I mean, this, is just kind of conceptual, but anything a partner brings back, right, they get credit towards something else, right, if it's no longer a feasible product. But you have to, you just imagine all the logistics involved in that, right? So who are the partners who could help you do that? That's, I think, something for us we do some of it, but doing more and making it, really programmatic for our partners is something that I'm interested in.
And that actually, as we're talking about it, you guys, that could be one of the areas that we look at tying, like higher level of benefits or whatever to potentially is around, do they have a renew strategy and are they executing on that? Because we want everybody to have that, who's dealing with us as hardware vendors. So that's something we can talk about when we meet, Crystal.
Looking forward to it.
One area I think that on our side that we have certainly is all those print cartridges.
Mm-hmm.
So many of those actually do come back and get refilled, recycled. I've been very impressed learning about that.
Yeah, and so I think we do that with every print cycle or every cylinder people send back to us. With a thing where it gets complicated that I've just realized in the last few months as I've gotten into this more is how hard it is if you take back something that's not your own product. Because it's only our own products that we actually know what's inside of them and how we're going to have to dispose of them and what to do. And it's really not easy if you're going to take other products and, not know where they come from. So anybody out there who's looking at that, just kind of a heads up to be, prepared, or I'm sure you're all already thinking about that already. I want to ask one last question and then we'll do a little speed wrap up. One of the things that our legal and compliance people are cautioning us about very regularly is what kind of information we actually give to partners as part of our program that we have out there, the assets, that really, if we're not up to date on one of the government regulations and we give out the wrong information, then it's on us. And they really look closely at what we actually do put in our materials and how we do position things, and where we are working with specific places in the Nordics and in places in Europe. What do you do, Ross? I think it's probably interesting for you because you actually have this as a service too around ESG reporting. So maybe you got it covered because you guys have to know that as part of your service and you feel like you're doing that. What's your thought?
Well, I do think we've got a lot of the reporting stuff covered, but what we don't expose a lot that I think we could do a better job of is how we reuse technology ourselves at scale. And this is every cloud provider, but this is going to get weirdly technical for a second, but block storage, especially high performance block storage, is the pinnacle of the storage pit. It's like high performance SSD. Over time, all storage develops errors and you error correct them out. When you reach a certain potential of error threshold, the performance of that isn't appropriate anymore for high transaction. That's where object storage comes from. That's where long-term cold storage in clouds comes from, is we never unplug a disk drive. We just move it to more and more reliable surfaces using RAID arrays and move them downstream until they become the power they consume isn't worth the benefit they generate, and you tip over that point. So there's an element about how well we report our own asset position and reuse versus asset disposition to departiculate, right? Take it to components versus recomponentize it into other offerings that we have. That's a big chunk of where does compute go when it dies? Well, it starts running cloud services as dedicated machines, right? Where does objects, where does, serverless environments, where does that non-distinct compute run? Well, it runs on all these end-of-life servers that have spare capacity, but you reach a point where their power density is no longer worth it. And then you go through componentization and taking it apart. So that we don't expose broadly because it's some of the proprietary stuff that goes into the economics of being a cloud provider. But it is a real story about sustainability that partners all the time ask us for views into that I think we can open up more in our reporting. Because
now you just told us, Ross. Now you just told us.
But it's not, look, but this isn't a big secret. Every cloud provider has a otherwise they would be burning through equipment at an alarming rate, and you would end up with this massive trash pile behind every data center. It can't work that way.
Yep.
It seems like one of the universal requests that we get from our partners is help us tell your story better. Yeah. Like, you guys have a great story, and it's not just one, but most companies, they're like, you guys have a really good story. We have no idea how to tell it to our customers. And so I think, and I'll start because this is going to be my speed round question. But the one thing that I would leave with the audience is, if you are considering just starting to do some things with your partners, some of the things we talked about today are things that, you really need to keep in mind. And in some ways will help you maybe avoid some of the things some of us have already gone through. Meg, let me start with you. If you have one thing to leave our, attendees with, what would it be? What would your final thought be?
I would say right now, be really clear with partners and enable them on your sustainability story and how make sure that they know the value proposition of that, how it helps their customers, how it helps them, and really how it helps them make money, because that's often all they care about. So I think that enablement and the clear story so that they can tell the story will drive, goodness in the world and will drive revenue. So if you can get both of those going, it's golden.
Crystal?
I would say applaud your partners who already have a sustainability initiative and reward them for it. And enable those partners that are just starting. Because I think there was a question, what happens to the little partner? Because this will be daunting for them. They don't have the resources to invest in. There's a lot of legalese and a lot of regulation that needs to be understood before you can document even your own impact report. So help them on that journey and get them. I think just by helping them with that, you are providing thought leadership to them. You're giving them something that they need to help build their business. And I think that you will be rewarded for it.
Great. Ross, how about you?
I would just remind your partners that sustainability is a business offer, that it's a business that they can take to their customers, because it went from something we want you to do out of good habit to something your customers are demanding and will pay you for. So is it appropriate for every partner? No. But if it's not, even if you're a small partner with somebody who provides that as a service to your customers to look across all their projects. And then it's part of that value equation you bring to them. But I think this is rapidly shifting from something we want them to do to something they get paid to do, which is where it becomes sustainable. And I'm very excited about that.
Great, thanks. We have a couple questions here that, as long as we have a couple minutes, we'll go ahead. First one, how has your approach changed with marketing promotional giveaways? Coming from my previous role, there's often pressure from partners, CAMs and sales reps to provide giveaways, but are they being used or an impulse grab that's eventually thrown out?
So I can tackle, like Oracle did this whole thing where we did a whole bunch of giveaways that were sustainability giveaways. Like one of our giveaways at our partner advisory board was, it seems like it's really innocent, but people loved it, was this reusable shopping bag done in the Oracle Redwood graphics that expands out into this non-rippable easy bag, but folds up to be really tiny. And like I watched these partners sit in the meeting learning to refold this bag. Like it was the greatest thing in the world, because they're like, no, this is perfect. I want to learn how to put this back together. Like, okay. And so that has become a thing, is like, how do you send the message through your marketing and make sure that sustainability is in the giveaway?
We've done the exact same thing.
I like that. Now I have too many bags though. Now I have too many bags. I have a comment in the chat, but one of the things that we did at my last role was for our big partner event, we, instead of giving our partners a giveaway, instead we made a very large donation to World Central Kitchen. And we said on behalf of every attendee, we're donating this amount. And they really liked it. They gave us such great feedback and positive feedback about that. And so we took the exact same budget we would have spent on giveaways and instead gave it away.
They love Jose Andres, so that's easy.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is actually something I was going to ask earlier, and then we kind of went to a different topic. But the question is, how can we help small partners? And, what's the difference that you're seeing in what we need to do to help small partners versus potentially larger organizations? Well, you guys are thinking, I'll tell you, this is one of the reasons that we started our Amplify Impact program, was as a really big vendor, we have just spent millions of dollars on training, assets, all kinds of things around sustainability. And it was the first thing I said was, why wouldn't we share that and let our little partners who don't have the money to go do all this stuff, like, why don't we just make all of this available to them too? And that was really kind of the genesis of our program, and starting it is being able to share what we had already done. But I think that small partners have some real different challenges Anything you guys have to add around that?
I don't have any small partners. It's part of the problem of being in the cloud is it's really hard to have a bench of less than 60 and do stuff,
Yeah.
I think enablement is definitely key, but I think also partnering, I think, Ross, maybe you even mentioned it before, partnering them up with a larger partner that has already done it before. We can obviously share what we've done to build our own impact report or what that process looks like, bringing in some legal support to help them to build the report. But just having a network of partners that they can ask what their journey has been like. We do that with some of our PABs, or just bringing partners that don't compete into a room so that they can ask each other questions. That networking, I think, is really valuable.
It's a great idea. Very good. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you all for joining, and thank you to our panel for being with us today. Closing remarks are going to be in about 4 minutes, so please go ahead and join there. Thanks, everybody.